Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 5:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Mark Spooner joins us at 5:30 from Fairfax County. We'll talk to him about what's going on in the schools there, as there is a big meeting tomorrow about sex ed curriculums in the third grade. Yeah, sure. Fairfax County can be trusted with that. We'll talk to Mark about that coming up. You can join us at 888-630-9625. President Trump just moments ago with Elon Musk in the Oval Office, and Elon's boy X was also there. Yes, that's right. His social media company and his child have the same name, X. Here is a little bit of that. I want to play the audio and just kind of react to some of it as Elon was talking through what DOGE is up to right now.
So thank you very much. We had a busy day today. The king just left, and we've had a great discussion, terrific discussion concerning Gaza and everything else. We had discussions also about Saturday at 12 o'clock. It's going to be a big moment. We'll see what happens. I don't expect much happening with these people, but we'll see what happens. And we're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's DOGE. And I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I said, we're going to do that. Nobody had any idea it was that bad, that sick, and that corrupt. And it seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from looking for corruption, especially when we found hundreds of millions of dollars worth, much more than that, in just a short period of time. We want to weed out the corruption, and it seems hard to believe that a judge could say, we don't want you to do that. Well, so maybe we have to look at the judges, because that's very serious. I think it's a very serious violation. I'll ask Elon Musk to say a few words, and we'll take some questions. Elon, go ahead.
Sure. So at a high level, if you say what is the goal of DOGE, and I think a significant part of the presidency is to restore democracy. This may seem like, well, aren't we in a democracy? Well, if you don't have a feedback loop, X, we would have to, if you
X is chattering.
Sorry. So, tell you, gravitas can be difficult sometimes. If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happens,
yes,
as opposed to a large, unelected bureaucracy.
Totally, common sense.
This is not to say that there aren't there are good people who are in the federal bureaucracy, but you can't have an autonomous federal bureaucracy. You have to have one that is responsive to the people. That's the whole point of a democracy.
Joe Biden would never.
If you looked at if you asked the founders today, and
nobody
said,
around him
what do you
would
think of the way things have turned out? Well, we have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want.
It's unacceptable.
And it's not. It does not match the will of the people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And then we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit. And if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget.
Yes.
Which is shocking, because we spend a lot of money on defense. But if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country. and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens,
so you can
and
afford
not simply be
things.
servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about $30 million,
right,
etc.?
Well, we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened at USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take their investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at the taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So, we're looking at, say, if you look at, say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place, that are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building.
They're scribbling things down on napkins.
You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations,
like
we're talking
Hamas.
about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation, can take up to a year to get on the list. And even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present.
This is what Democrats are protesting.
Well, how could such a thing arise?
What he's talking about.
That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. But now we're saying that no, actually we are going to complain if money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely.
This is so common sense. It's like, just keep an accurate checkbook. That's literally all he's trying to do. And the left is going bananas over this. They are setting their hair on fire, going crazy out in front of all these government buildings, getting every corrupt judge in the country they can to try and interfere with this. Elon Musk is explaining, we're just trying to figure out how these payments are categorized. We just want to see a comment in the comment box explaining who we're paying and why. And if we have people we don't want to pay, like, say, terrorist organizations, it shouldn't take a year for us to put them on the do not pay list.
Things that matter to the people. I mean, these things, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone who's 150? I don't. Okay.
What a great program. You keep taking care of people when they're 150.
They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. So, that's the case where, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it. and that they receive it quickly and accurately.
But people shouldn't be stealing it from you.
Thing. So, one of the things is like we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this. Obviously, there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, well, okay, let's if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we're told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, then the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
Okay, let me pause on this, because what he's describing before the left goes all in on saying, oh, this is crazy. What is he talking about? It's totally true. Our buddy Alex Pfeiffer is over at the White House, posted today about this. It's in Boyers, Pennsylvania. And the Washington Post actually back in 2014 had written about this. In Boyers, Pennsylvania, there is an old limestone mine that they use to stockpile the nation's retirement records for federal employees. They have trucks full of paperwork that come in every day just north of Pittsburgh, and they descend through a gateway into the earth. Underground, they stop at a metal door decorated with an American flag. Behind the door, a room opens up as big as a supermarket full of 5-drawer file cabinets and people in business casual. And then about 230 feet below the surface, they've got easy listening music playing at somebody's desk. It's one of the weirdest workplaces in the entire United States government, both for where it is and for what it does. These are caverns of an old Pennsylvania limestone mine, 600 employees of the Office of Personnel Management. Their task is not top secret. It's just to process the retirement papers of the government's own workers. But that system has a spectacular flaw. It must be done entirely by hand and almost entirely on paper. The employees pass thousands of case files from cavern to cavern and then key in retirees' personal data one line at a time. They work underground, not for secrecy, but for space. The old mine's tunnels have room for more than 28,000 file cabinets of paper records. So you hear Elon talking about it going, the limiting factor is how long it takes the elevator to get down into the mine shaft. So we can't have more than 10,000 people retire in a single month because everything is done by hand at the bottom of a mine shaft. This is your federal government.
And the elevator breaks down sometimes, and then nobody can retire. Doesn't that sound crazy? There's like 1,000 people that work on this. So I think if we take those people and say, like, you know what, instead of working in a mine shaft and carrying manila envelopes to, boxes in a mine shaft, you could do practically anything else. And you would add to the goods and services of the United States in a more useful way.
Unbelievable. Anyway, that's Elon Musk today reporting from the Oval Office that he's just trying to get the nation's checkbook in order, see what all these expenses are for, and make sure that they're going to the right people, and that we're not paying people who are not actually alive Social Security checks. 150 years? He says, I'm pretty sure she's dead. I think at this point we can confirm that she is dead, or else the Guinness Book of World Records needs to track her down. And maybe we shouldn't be using an ancient mine shaft in order to handle retirement benefits for federal workers. Just saying. It's fine. I'm told this mine, a caller tells us that Boyers, Pennsylvania, where this limestone mine is, that the government keeps all the retiree paperwork deep under the earth, it's apparently in Butler County, Pennsylvania. How about that? That Butler keeps popping up in President Trump's life. This time, as we talk about government accountability, Lisa's on the phone in Alexandria, line 3. Lisa, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Big fan. I'm
Thank you.
calling because my husband passed away in August, and I submitted my application, which was on tissue thin paper, to OPM, double-sided tissue thin paper. It's been 5 months now, and I haven't heard a thing. I sent it to that address in Pennsylvania. He was an exemplary federal employee, voted for Trump twice. I voted for him 3 times. They named a conference room after him. He worked as hard as a person can work.
Wow.
And I'm so frustrated now because I don't have the pension yet. Now, I can afford it, but what about people who depended on it?
So did you know that this place that you're waiting on to get this pension is staffed by 1,000 people who are working hundreds of feet underground and only work with paper, and they have to take an elevator down a mine shaft to get to it?
I had no idea, but I did read that only 11% of OPM employees have been going into the office.
I wonder if that's true for the mine, the mine office that they have to
hope
work in.
not.
I hope not, too, for your sake and everybody else's. So when you hear Elon Musk say this is the most obvious thing in the world to fix, I imagine you vehemently agree with him.
I do. I just worry that, what if they say, oh, these federal employees, they don't deserve a pension. I hope that's not the case, particularly for my husband. I'm hoping that they can improve the efficiency.
Me too. Yeah, no, you just heard from Elon saying, look, if you earn this, you're entitled to it. And it's insane that we have a system right now that's stopping that from happening, Lisa. I think he's on your side. It sure sounds like that to me. Thank you for your call. Yeah, that's crazy. Boy, it's like our government's literally in a time capsule, and we're like, why isn't it working efficiently? Well, it's not a part of this century, for one. Stay with us. Ahead, we're going to talk to Mark Spooner out of Fairfax County. He's concerned about what the schools are doing to the kids there. We are too. We'll talk to Mark in a moment. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 5:35, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. If you are a parent, a citizen in Fairfax County, Virginia, and you're worried about the state of our schools, you're going to want to listen to this conversation we're about to have with our next guest on a big meeting set to take place tomorrow night. It involves an effort by some Fairfax County officials to groom children into believing that they were born in the wrong body. This, in a world where so much sanity is prevailing, Fairfax County and the officials there cling to insanity. Joining us now is Mark Spooner. He's the author of FairfaxSchoolsMonitor.com. Mark, good to have you with us, sir.
I'm glad to be with you.
Okay, so we've got a big meeting going on in Fairfax County tomorrow night. What is it all about?
Well, let me first give you just a minute or so of background.
Okay.
The Fairfax County School Board has a community advisory committee called the Family Life Education Community Advisory Committee, mouthful, abbreviated FLECAC. And its purpose is to make recommendations about the sex education curriculum in the schools. This committee isn't representative of the community. Its members are appointed by the school board members, who are all very progressive.
Yep.
And they appoint people who reflect their outlook. Now, lately, this committee seems to be laser focused on promoting more extreme transgender policies. And I should say that Fairfax County Public Schools already has one of the most pro-trans policies in the nation. It favors biological males in girls' sports, biological males in girls' locker rooms, bathrooms, and even hotel rooms on field trips. If the girls object, they have to find the alternative. The biological male has the absolute right to use the girls' facility. The pronoun policing is involved in the policy, and there's support for gender transitioning without parental consent. Mm-hmm. The attitude in the school system seems to be that the desires of this tiny minority should have priority over the rights of everybody else, including the rights of parents to control the upbringing of their kids. But that never seems to be enough. The demands are relentless. For example, last year, the committee urged the school board to combine boys and girls in the same sex ed classes where they had previously been separated. For example, in classes about body changes during puberty. Mm-hmm. And what was the motivation for doing this? Well, there might be one child in the school who was experiencing gender dysphoria, who didn't want to choose whether to attend the boys' class or the girls' class. So the solution was to throw everybody together. The school board conducted a community survey about this, and a overwhelming 85% of the respondents, including teachers, parents, students, opposed what the FLECAC proposal was. Mm-hmm. But guess what? The school system rejected the results and has gone forward with gender combined classes.
They rammed it through anyway, despite the community opposing it.
Right.
So what's on the menu tomorrow then? What are you tackling tomorrow night?
This year, the agenda is to start teaching young kids about gender identity in early elementary grades. I don't know why parents would want this for their kids at ages where the kids are thinking about being pirates or princesses. The gender extremists want to teach that boys might be potential princesses and vice versa.
Do you know what grades you're thinking? You said early elementary. Does that how early are they talking?
Yes. At the December meeting, which was the last meeting because the January one was canceled due to the weather, there was a proposal by some of the committee members to start teaching about gender identity in the third grade. And that's going to be discussed at this committee meeting tomorrow. Now, you said it's a big meeting. It may be a big meeting, assuming the weather doesn't cancel it. Mm-hmm. But ordinarily, these committee meetings are under the radar. Hardly anybody usually attends them. They're, in the evening at the school headquarters. I mean, people are entitled to attend, but people are busy and generally don't. So these proposals usually become fait accompli in terms of their recommendations to the school board before anybody pays attention. But this year, people are paying attention, and there's been quite a bit of publicity. And I have a feeling that quite a number of people may turn up at the meeting to pay attention to what's actually going on.
I hope they do, because what you're telling me is that Fairfax County is contemplating grooming children as young as 8 years old, that's third grade, and telling them that they were born in the wrong bodies. This is not an academic exercise. This is a radical left-wing destructive exercise at the expense of the children who've been entrusted into their care. And so as it stands now, if parents don't show up to protest this, if community members don't show up to protest this effort, is it your view, Mark, that they will once again ram this through?
Yeah, generally, the school board pretty much rubber stamps what the committee recommends. And if they go forward and recommend teaching about gender identity in third grade or even fifth grade, I suspect that the school board would put it through. I mean, after all, they ignored what 85% of the respondents said on a community survey last year on another proposal. I mean, the proposals just seem to be relentless. It's not enough, to respect everybody for who they are. It's not enough to adopt measures to adopt bullying. This group seems to be intent on making the rights of everybody else subservient to what they want. And they just seem relentless.
Mark, President Trump has signed a number of executive orders indicating that this type of radical gender ideology and the type of bigotry that the left has been advancing by judging people on the basis of their race, it needs to be purged from the schools, because the schools are supposed to be about education, academics, reading, writing, arithmetic, and not these types of concepts that are designed to divide people against themselves, even if they start becoming convinced that they're born in the wrong body. What's on the line is federal funding. President Trump says he's going to remove federal funding from these institutions if they continue to abuse children in this way. Do you think Fairfax cares about that? How are they reacting to it?
Well, I think their attitude is that they will fight it as long as they can. Before any federal funding would be removed, there would inevitably be litigation, and that litigation could drag on for some time. I checked the other day that Fairfax County currently receives about $50 million a year in federal funding. That's only about 1.5% of the overall school budget, which measures about $3.8 billion per year. But it's still a lot of money. So if the administration follows through with its threat, I think Fairfax County and some of the other D.C. area counties like Loudoun County, Virginia, and Montgomery County, Maryland, would be prime targets for the administration to go after first. But the funding would not be removed overnight.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I mean, just like there have been federal restraining orders to keep it in place until the litigation has played out on some of the other recent orders, I think probably the same thing would happen there. So I fully expect, knowing the school board as I do,
yes,
that they would fight it every step of the way.
I see that there's a pro-child abuse contingent that is trying to kind of fill the room tomorrow night in Fairfax County in order to push back against parents who want to introduce reason into this conversation. What can you tell us, Mark, about what to expect tomorrow night, and give people the details of how they can actually show up?
Okay. The community is not allowed to speak at the meeting, so they can only observe. But I think having people there at a meeting where people don't ordinarily show up will send a powerful message. The meeting is at the Fairfax County School headquarters, which is in the Merrifield area of Fairfax County, 8115 Gatehouse Road. And it's from 7 to 9 p.m. And I think there will probably be quite a turnout. So that's the logistics. For more information, I'd urge people, more detailed information about how to get in the building after hours and so on. I'd urge people to go to fairfaxschoolsmonitor.com and look at some of my recent posts.
Yeah, fairfaxschoolsmonitor.com. Mark, you have a great website. How long have you been running that website?
Well, about 3.5 years. I got involved for the first time in following what the school system is doing about 3.5 years ago during the gubernatorial campaign, when there were claims on one side, you're teaching critical race theory, no, we're not, yes, you are, and so on. And being retired, I thought I'll do some investigation and find out for myself what's going on. And the more I dug, the more concerned I got, and I decided to share what I find through Freedom of Information Act requests and otherwise with the public. So I set up this website, and I write periodical articles to keep people advised. And
when you're on your public records requests, does Fairfax County try and charge you a bunch of money when you ask for things?
Well, sometimes, yes. It depends on how sensitive they think it is. I don't have any beef with government entities charging a reasonable amount of money for requests, because otherwise, they could get, totally overwhelmed with frivolous requests. What they do is they estimate how long it would take to respond to a request, and they charge you at the rate of $35 an hour, which I don't find to be unreasonable. But I have found that sometimes they will make privilege claims where they aren't warranted and drag out the process somewhat. But the actual people who respond to the requests, I've had a pretty good track record in dealing with them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for reporting on all this and for staying in this fight. It's a big deal for so many parents. Mark, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, that meeting tomorrow of the Family Life Education Curriculum Advisory Committee set to take place at Fairfax County Public Schools headquarters starting at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Members of the public are welcome to attend. Boy, I hope you prevail in preventing this insanity from taking further hold inside these schools.
Well, I appreciate you giving some publicity to it.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Good talking to you.
That's
Bye.
Mark Spooner, FairfaxSchoolsMonitor.com. And his site is great. It's straight to the point, and it describes everything that's happening really crisply, which is always nice. You know, always nice to get something that gets right to the point and tells you what's happening. Just amazing. Just amazing. Let's see. Kathleen is calling in from McLean on line 2. Kathleen, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, Vince, so much. And Mark, so grateful to Mark for being on top of these things. He often, I think always, is at the school board meetings, taking notes, writing up reports. My husband and I have frequently testified. Our children, well, the youngest has been out for a while, but when I looked at what they were going to teach her in 7th grade, this is many years ago, I had to go into the school, look through the curriculum to opt out, and I said, you have got to be kidding me. You're going to teach her about sex with animals, bestiality, other things I can't even mention.
What?
But then, yeah. Then there's a questionnaire. The questionnaire from last year for 6th graders, there is a video which shows intense sex trafficking, saying victims are forced to have sex with up to 30 customers a day. This is last year. This is in the emotional social health.
What grade is this?
What?
What grade is this?
6th grade.
6th grade. Okay. 11 years old.
But even younger, in 7th grade, the phrase oral sex appears 11 times in this lesson. And then they go into the transgender. Some male bodies have neither male nor female. Human sexuality includes gender identity, etc. But, you know, so there's another kind of grooming going on.
Yes.
The grooming is to normalize the abnormal, to normalize what should not be. I mean, these kids don't need this. And every high school, by their own admission, by Fairfax County Public Schools' own admission, every high school in Fairfax County has had reports of human, a.k.a. sex, trafficking. Some middle schools and some elementary schools, but every high school in Fairfax County has had reports of human trafficking. And, you know, so they're grooming these kids not only to be and most of these, often the kids who are confused,
well,
autism, or they have Asperger's.
Yes, of course. Of course. These are people who are being victimized, and it is the cruelest thing imaginable. It's not inclusive. It's destructive. And to your point, you know, just in the last 24 hours, we have another report of a Fairfax County school teacher who is accused of sexually assaulting a 10 and an 11-year-old student in school. This is just so meanwhile, the county is wrapping itself around this idea that they need to advance grooming more children, rather than spending some time making sure that the kids are going to somewhere that's safe and that is actually looking out for their education and that parents can trust. They're going in the exact opposite direction. And Kathleen, I'm horrified by what you're sharing, but not surprised by it at all. Not appalled, but not shocked, as usual when it comes to the left these days. Thank you, Kathleen. All right, tomorrow on this fine radio program, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia will be with us. We'll chat with Jason Miyares. He's got some things to say about what's going on in Fairfax County. He's got concerns about what's happening in the schools. A lot to discuss with him and with you, as always. The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.